does take a lot of time to really get a valid picture, and I would point out that we don't like to announce definite results until we are absolutely sure that what we're telling you is correct.
General, we know several planes have been lost so far in this air war. We have a report today from Baghdad by the Iranian news agency reporting that 2 American pilots have been shown on Iraqi television, that they have been captured. This comes from the Iranian journalist in Baghdad, but saying they were on television shown there. Do you have any information about this?
No, I've heard the same reports you've heard. I sincerely hope that's not true. We're doing our best to abide by the Geneva Convention, and I would certainly hope that the Iraqis do also.
Fred?
Yeah, General, how many pilots have we lost to date missing in action in the last 24 hours? The figure was up to 9. We had a couple of rescues. Could you bring us up to date on that?
Yeah, our total right now is 13 Americans and 9 members of the coalition. We have varying reports about what's happened to some of those members, but I would tell you, again, without giving you false numbers, we're carrying 13 Americans, 1 KIA, 12 missing in action, and the coalition has got 9 more.
So in the past 24 hours, we've lost 2 more aircraft or 3 more aircraft in the past 24 hours?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Probably
right.
3. I'm not exactly sure of the number.
And General, going back to the bombing and how successful, there are 4 primary nuclear research and development facilities. Can you say to the American people today that those weapons of mass destruction have been knocked out with the first 4 days of bombing?
I have very high confidence that those nuclear reactors have been thoroughly damaged and will not be effective for quite some number of years.
General Schwarzkopf, on the eve of this war, the head of the Israeli Air Force complained that there was really no facility for coordinating between Israeli forces and your forces in the Gulf in the event Israel should have to enter this war. Now that the Israelis have been struck and now that it is a possibility they will have to enter the war, has there been a coordination mechanism established?
I do not have any direct coordination mechanism with the Israeli armed forces in any way. Washington has made its own arrangements, and I think that is a question that is better directed at Washington than to Central Command.
Well, just to follow that up, are you confident that should the Israelis have to retaliate for an Iraqi missile attack, that you won't be literally running into each other in the skies?
I can assure you that that's one of my major concerns, and I am quite sure that that we're not going to be running into each other in the skies. I'm very sure of that.
General, do you have any information as to where Saddam Hussein is, what his attitude might be, and also are you able to monitor or find out what his top military leaders are saying to each other, what their morale is like, his generals?
Once again, I would say that finding one man is very difficult. We've had many reports that say that he is now, since we've announced that we're not targeting innocent civilians, that he's taken to hiding in buildings and hotels and things of that sort that are deep among innocent civilians, with the sure knowledge that we're not going to go in there and kill a lot of innocent people. So I think that's the best answer I can give you. Again, we're not going after Saddam. If I can eliminate his ability to communicate with his forces, and I'd be entirely satisfied with that result.
And do we know what his leaders, his military leaders, are saying or thinking these days, his generals?
Well, you've read the reports. Let me see. Tel Aviv is a crematorium. We all know that's absolutely ridiculous. They've shot down 170 of our airplanes. That's absolutely ridiculous. Once again, it's the same concern I think that we've all had for a very long time, and that's whether Saddam Hussein is getting the correct story or being told what he wants to hear.
General, you said you'd be satisfied if Saddam couldn't communicate with his generals. In fact, that was primary #1 mission in this whole thing, to stop his ability to communicate. Has that been a failure on your part, General?
It has absolutely not been a failure.
So you're telling me flatly that he's not been able to talk to his troops?
I am telling you flatly that our objective has not been a failure. I just shouldn't leave it at that.
General, everything goes wrong, and things go wrong in war. We've had 4 days of war. Would you tell the American people what are your surprises last 4 days?
The biggest surprise I have is not something that went wrong, it's something that went so right, and I'm so delighted with it, and that is the almost unbelievably low number of casualties that we have had, considering the fact that we were flying against an air defense system that was far, far, far tougher than anything America has ever flown against in the history of our warfare, and that certainly includes the air defense system over downtown Hanoi. It's just a real tribute, I guess, number one, to our capabilities, secondly, to the courage and the professionalism of our pilots, but I am just absolutely delighted with the extremely low level of casualties. If I had to say something bad, I'd say I wish the weather'd be a little bit nicer right now.
General Schwarzkopf, on that note, we thank you very much for being with us live today from Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much. Next,
you're quite welcome.
Two voices from Congress, Congressman Lee Hamilton and Stephen Solars, as we continue.
It has not been very large.
Right. Well, I know that most people in America are pleased that you were not hit again last night, and we know how jittery everybody is. We wish you the best of luck, and thank you very much, Moshe Ahrens, for being our guest.
Thank you.
Thank you. When we come back, Congressman Les Aspin.
Do you see them being? Congressman Hamilton.
Well, if the American crews are on the Patriot missile batteries for a very brief period of time, which is my understanding that they will be, I really don't see any real long-range implications. Significant because it's the first time, I guess, that American forces have actually been in Israel as part of their security arrangements, but I don't see major implications to that, and I think it's advisable that we turn that over to the Israelis as quickly as the crews can be trained.
Congressman Solars.
I think that Israel's stock in both the White House and the Congress has probably never been higher than it is at present. The remarkable restraint they've demonstrated in choosing, at least so far, not to retaliate against Iraq in spite of Saddam's brutal and unprovoked missile attacks against their population centers has generated considerable appreciation and approval in Washington. And I think the deployment of the Patriot missile system is a dramatic manifestation of the extent to which this crisis in the Gulf has brought Israel and the United States even closer together.
Tom?
Congressman Hamilton, you and I talked on the eve of this war about some of the mixed feelings that your own constituents had about going into this war. What would you say today is your assessment of how long the American public can tolerate a major commitment of American troops in the Persian Gulf?
I think it depends almost entirely at this moment on the casualties. Saddam Hussein does not need to win the war. He doesn't need to win the battles. All he has to do is keep this war going and to create casualties. And if he does that over a period of time, then you're going to see an erosion of support for the war. Now, that's the worst case scenario. None of us hopes that happens. But if this war drags on, Saddam Hussein, with each passing day, becomes more of a hero in the Arab world, and he could be like Nasser in 1956, who didn't win a war, who didn't win a battle, and emerged as a great hero of the Arab people.
Do you agree with that?
Well, I fully agree with Lee Hamilton that the longer the war lasts and the greater the casualties are, the more opposition there will be. But I would offer this one caveat and caution. If Saddam uses chemical and biological weapons, and particularly if he should choose to use them against our forces, I think the American people will be so enraged that it will guarantee American support for this undertaking, no matter how long it takes. And I think that if he uses his weapons of mass destruction, therefore, the Iraqi miscalculator, as I call Saddam these days, will have made his greatest miscalculation.
Representative Solars, there's been a tremendous shift in geopolitics here just in the last couple of days. And we've just learned before going on this show, the United States has now decided to send an aircraft carrier, the USS Forrestal, from Mayport, Florida, hurry up to the coast of Israel. So it's not just Patriot missiles, it's now an aircraft carrier as well. Could you have imagined this 10 days ago?
I am somewhat surprised, but I think it's another indication of the desire on the part of the administration to provide every assurance possible to Israel that we have their legitimate security interests at heart. At the same time, I know the Israelis feel very strongly that in the final analysis, the defense of Israel is an Israeli responsibility. They haven't asked for American forces in the past. This is perhaps a unique situation, particularly given Saddam's capacity to send missiles in their direction.
Congressman Hamilton, 6 months ago we were all deciding how to spend the peace dividend. And Secretary Cheney's biggest task was to bring down the defense budget. What do you think is going to be the impact of this war on Congress's attitude toward defense spending, especially a war that is now going to cost us clearly at least $1 billion a day?
Well, the Congress, first of all, will be fully supportive of any effort in the Gulf. I know there's been some suggestion in the press that we might be cutting off funding. I see no prospect of that at all. We clearly will see a strong push on the defense budget side to increase some defense spending from some of the projected cutbacks. And clearly also, I think, one of the major results of this war will be the success of the high-tech weapons. No doubt that they have made a great impact, and Congress will be more receptive now to this high-technology weapon system.
Representative Solars, more taxes to pay for this, $1 billion a day. These high-tech weapons, one cruise missile, $1 million a shot. Taxes to pay for it, increased taxes.
We are clearly going to have to come to grips with how this war is going to be paid for, and that is one possibility which cannot be ruled out. With the deficit at record levels already, I think there'd be very serious concerns in the Congress about permitting it to dramatically escalate.
Okay, thank you. Garrick?
Hamilton, Stephen Solars, Congressman, thank you for being with us today and here on Meet the Press. My thanks also to Fred Francis and
Kuwait. You start with the command headquarters. You start with their ability to hamper us by, you go after his Air Force and the air defenses. And of course, always we wanted to go after the chemical and biological and nuclear facilities. As long as we're going to go to war, we wanted to take those out. So the logical thing, even if you assumed
But
that
what we're going after him, too, is what I mean.
No, I don't think that's true.
You don't?
I think that this is all part of a very logical plan that goes through 2 phases of air campaign, and then finally, if necessary, a ground campaign.
How can you say we're not going after him when we've bombed virtually every building he could conceivably be in, including his hometown now, apparently?
Well, I think that the targeting was based upon its military significance. And if he, for example, was
his
in
hometown?
Well, look, I think that that General Powell and Dick Cheney and the President have all said, our objective is not to get Saddam Hussein himself, but to get the Iraqi forces out of Kuwait. And I believe that's true, mainly because I'm not sure, I think it's a debatable point whether it's in our interest to have Saddam Hussein dead. I think it's a debatable point whether you want to make a martyr out of him. I think I can make a case, and you can argue it both ways, but I can make a case that what you really want is Saddam Hussein chastened, contained, and put down.
Weak. Okay.
Weak.
Congressman Les Aspin, thank you very, very much. We'll be back with a final word.
Should strike at American interests anywhere. Saddam Hussein says it's now time for the holy war to spread. That same night, Allied planes were over Baghdad, delivering a massive retaliatory strike for the attack on Israel. The payload guidance systems are astonishing in their accuracy. It's a kind of reassurance given our proximity to the points of detonation. This aerial siege has stripped the capital of its ability to give heat, light and water to its population. Living conditions for the civilians will soon become primitive at this rate. Shops are closed. People are unable to buy food. The reality of what this war is doing to Iraq must be sinking in. If people have second thoughts, no one is willing to express it. On Saturday morning, we could see that a cruise missile had sliced off the top 200-foot section of the main communications tower. Computer technology to achieve that kind of accuracy is also designed to minimize civilian casualties. Iraq claims that the attacks have killed many